Okay, hello, and welcome to the Katana Property Channel. Yet again, this is episode number 7. Really excited to be spending the day with you and the evening with you, more to the point. So if you're tuning in, super cool to have you on board. Thank you very much for joining in. I'd first like to say thank you very much for taking the time to join us, but more importantly, you should commend yourself for doing what 99% of the world refuses to do, and actually taking your time to be able to invest your time in yourself, to further your knowledge, further your education, and take that step towards financial freedom. Now, just to sort of get things set up, if you're on the stream or if you're watching this video because you'd like to become financially free through property and you'd like to be able to build a property portfolio, then you are 100% in the right place. So super cool to have you in. Today, what we're going to be covering is the good lessons that we take from COVID-19, and we're also going to talk a little bit about the advancements in technology of property over this period, and as well as what we expect to see coming over the next few months and next few years throughout the property world, to enable you to be able to find out where the world is going and get yourself there. So hopefully you guys should get some really good value. Just sort of want to check in, just want to make sure you guys can see and hear and feel and all that sort of good stuff. So if you can just give me a yes in the chat box, just to confirm that you guys are here, and just to make sure that you guys can actually hear the feed and I'm not talking to myself, which I can promise you would not be the first time I've presented with sound off and talk to myself and look like a bit of a fool. Okay, perfect. Thank you, Ashu. I'm glad you can sort of hear me and tune in. Okay, brilliant. So essentially, just so you are aware, how we're going to be working the whole session is we've broken the session down into 4 sections. Awesome. Welcome, Liz. Awesome to have you in. Thank you very much for joining. Very cool to have you on board. Yes. So what we're going to be covering in this session, first thing is the interesting lessons to be taken from COVID-19, which I think are going to be very useful and very valuable for you guys to get an understanding of what some of the best lessons are for our business throughout this entire period, as to how we're adapting and evolving to continue to build the business and grow. So that's the first thing. Second thing, thanks, Ashu. It's all on live, man. It's all recording. I love it. So second thing we're going to be covering is the new way of being able to view properties. So being able to build your portfolio from the comfort of your own home, being able to view houses off the back of that. So there's some really cool technologies, really cool stuff happening out in the marketplace already at the minute. And then last but not least, we're going to be covering some of our advancements, the stuff that we here at Katana do to enable you to build a portfolio from the comfort of your own home. So it should be a very interesting session. I'm very much looking forward to it. And we've got a very long amount of ground to cover over the next sort of 45 minutes to an hour. If you guys have any questions throughout, please do just drop a message in the chat. And as always, please share, please like. It's easy for us to be able to get the stream shared and spread that way. So it is appreciated. Thank you, guys. Okay, so first thing we're going to be kicking off with is the interesting lessons to be taken from Corona. Now, one of the biggest lessons that I've taken, most certainly in my personal life, and a lot of my close personal friends, as well as people around me, all comes down to the necessity of passive income in life. Now, out of interest, if you're on the stream and you're in a well-paid job and you get paid decent money, I hope this hasn't happened to some of you guys, but obviously this has happened to quite a few people. Have you noticed that the thing that we believe is job security is it's a fallacy. It's a farce. There's no such thing as genuine job security. Job security kind of disappears. This is Corona, right? This is what it's highlighted. A lot of people that felt very comfortable within their workplaces all of a sudden realize that your manager will not continue to pay you unless you're actually performing work, performing duties, and actually getting paid and earning money for the business. Otherwise, it doesn't make any sense. Now, fortunately for us, or for many of you, the government's pulled out all the stops to make sure people get paid. You get furlough income and all sorts of other really cool stuff. But a lot of people haven't been paid. Now, the interesting thing is, a lot of those people who haven't been paid or have found themselves in a position where they've been really heavily negatively affected by Corona would have thought that they were secure within their jobs and they had a cushy number, that was going to make sure that they were employed and they were going to continue to earn their income. Now, this for me is a little bit of a concern, right? And this is something you need to be considering, is the job that you're currently doing or the business that you're currently working in giving you the genuine security that you believe? I genuinely believe that there is the term job security is a fallacy. I believe it's a fallacy because there's no such thing. Because ask yourself honestly, if something were to happen to you today, do you think they just find a replacement for you within the next month? And the answer is typically yes, unless it's your business and you've built the business around you, which some of us have. But if that's not the case, then the vast majority of you will notice that as soon as all this went down and went wrong, essentially the businesses stopped trading and you found yourself, up the creek without a paddle. So that obviously is not a secure method. Now, if you take a look at investing in property and what that often has to offer, when you stop working, what happens to the money? Okay, and this is a very important question. When you stop working in property, what happens to the money? And this is only if you've built your portfolio correctly. Now, please feel free to review some of the previous videos. We actually talk all around how to invest correctly and what you need to do. And the obvious answer is as soon as you stop working in property, it continues to give you your residual income, your passive income. Now, please understand, and I'll be 100% cards on the table, property is not 100% hands-free. It is not 100% passive. And anybody that tells you that is full of shit. Because at some point, your portfolio might be big enough that you get an asset manager in to manage it. Guess who has to manage the asset manager? You. Okay. So it's not 100% hands off. However, it is significantly more hands off than any other sort of business or lifestyle that you'll typically find that gives you the same kind of returns year on year, time on time. Okay. Now, the beauty is if you consider like a job would often give you, when you stop working in a job, the money stops. However, when you stop working your portfolio, the money continues to carry on and continues to come in. That then should tell you that that is the best place you should be spending your time. Okay. And now it's interesting because a lot of people say, well, property investing is so slow or it's so expensive or it's got all these problems. Now, please understand, I built my portfolio from having negative £40,000. That's where I started my portfolio growth. And we managed to build and then subsequently, in part, sell off a multi-million-pound portfolio in just a few short years. We've worked with our mentorship students. We've actually built over 10 million in property within the last 18 months. That's over 120 properties purchased, purely using the systems and stuff that we're going to be covering later today. So interestingly enough, for those of you that are on the stream, if you like systems, give me a yes in the chat. We're going to show you some pretty cool systems that enable you to be able to build a portfolio from the comfort of your own home, very comfortably, very securely, and get financially free without ever having to leave your house, which I think is going to be pretty cool for you guys. Okay, so obviously in terms of investments versus a job, hopefully now you see that the investments will always win time and time and time again, providing you invested correctly. Okay, because they continue to give you the income, they continue to have the growth, whereas a job is the thing that can easily fall away when the shit gets tough. Okay, now the second thing is online versus offline. And this is something that I've seen a lot of. Out of interest, who noticed that you get all these exercise videos, yoga videos, all of these live streams of all of these people doing all of this really interesting stuff all online. Something similar to this. I'm not going to hide that. Who noticed that you're getting a lot more of that in the marketplace out of interest? Who noticed you're getting a lot more of that? Okay, because that stuff yes, okay, great. So that stuff, you're going to notice that a lot of businesses are evolving from being offline, which is basically a lot of face-to-face, to being a online marketplace. Now, it's really interesting because there's pros and cons with regards to offline and online. Obviously, with regards to online, it's more difficult to build a relationship. With regards to offline, it's typically much more expensive, much more time consuming. I mean, if you know the cost of all of our camera equipment and everything we've paid for just to be able to run the stream, a couple of £1,000, £2,000, £3,000, it's not a lot. Whereas if I were to use exactly the same equipment that I need in a larger live event, the cost is going to be significantly higher. And also then you have to hire the venues, you have to pay for all the food and drinks and the coffees. And honestly, the cost is through the roof. One of the other biggest challenges with being online is it's really difficult to build a really good relationship with somebody if they are purely watching you through a screen. Okay, now if you're watching me through a screen, hopefully you get some value from the stream anyway, but you'll notice it's very difficult to be able to create a solid bond because this is a one-way conversation. It's a one-way dialogue. And although I love you guys chatting and putting messages in the chat box, unfortunately, these messages, it takes time to filter through, and therefore it makes it harder to have a strong dialogue. Now, one of the biggest benefits, however, of being able to go online, and if you're in a position that your business can go online or what you currently do can go online, one of the biggest benefits is the fact that your online business can not just reach an audience within a local area, your online business can reach an audience globally. So we actually just ran a 3-day live training, literally a week ago, right here in this very same studio. And it was myself and Taro, my business partner, who is the Japanese guy. I don't know if you can see him in the banners. That was over in Stockholm. So that is Turo. And we ran this event, and we had people literally tuning in from all over the world for a 3-day event. Okay, we had people in from Singapore, from Bulgaria, from Italy, from Spain. Just trying to think where else we had. We also had Switzerland, a couple from Switzerland. So we had quite a few different places around the world, and essentially our cost of marketing was significantly less. I'd love to do more Katana hugs, Gavin. It'd be awesome to see you, dude. And I'm like super keen to be able to do some more hugs. And my wife's joined the stream. Hey, honey, awesome to have you on. Thank you for joining. Super cool. Right, okay. So that tells you a little bit about some of the lessons that we've taken there. Now, the third most important lesson, and this for me is probably one of the biggest lessons we've taken from the whole Corona thing. Okay, now there's 3 points to this, and I'm going to stick it up on the flip chart because I think it's useful for you guys to make note of it. Okay, you got 3 points. So first is DIY. Okay, DIY. Okay, second is DFY, and third is DA. Okay, so anybody want to tell me, what do you think DIY stands for? You should all know this, especially you gentlemen, because you'll be doing it at home, and you ladies, because you'll be telling your man to be doing it at home or doing it yourself. Okay, so DIY, obviously, yep, it stands for do it yourself. Okay, do it yourself. That's exactly what it stands for, do it yourself. Okay, now DFY. Anybody want to hazard a guess as to what DFY stands for? And this is where it starts to get a little bit more interesting. Okay, DFY stands for done for you. Okay, done for you. Now I'm going to go through the definitions in a minute. And then last but not least is DA, and this is by far my favorite. Now, we're a technology business, and what we do is all based on technology and enabling you to be able to build your portfolio from the comfort of your home. And this isn't deal sourcing for any of you that think this is a clever little ploy for sourcing. It's not. Listen to the end. I guarantee you'll go, oh, now I get it. Super cool, right? So DA stands for done automatically, or what I like to say is done automagically. Okay, I absolutely love it. It's when things get done for you. Okay, it's very, very cool. Now, when it comes to DIY, doing it yourself, the thing that you are valuing the most is your money. You're valuing your money over your time. Now, that's really interesting because the most valuable asset you have in life is quite obviously your time, because you don't get that back, right? That's gone. Once it's spent, it's gone. Whereas money, you can always earn more money. So it's really interesting because when people like to do a lot of this stuff themselves, so this is typically when you have people doing self-management of their portfolios, doing all the viewings themselves, booking all the viewings themselves, speaking to the agents themselves, doing the refurbishments themselves, all of this stuff that they're doing themselves, all they are doing is trading away their most valuable asset, which is their time, to save a little bit of money, which for me is madness. It's insane. No fully functioning business can operate in this manner. Okay. Now, number 2, which is DFY, so done for you. The thing that you value the most when you try and get other people to do it for you is you're valuing your time the most. Okay, so you're allowing the cost of money to allow you to free up your time so that you can better utilize your time to do stuff that will earn you more money than it is costing for you to get somebody else to do it. As a quick little fact check, who at home still does all the ironing? Who at home still does all the cleaning? Who, like all of these jobs at home, you can physically pay somebody else to do it if you have another avenue for you to utilize that time to a better return. Okay, so that is DFY there. Now, finally, DA is done automatically. Now, this for me, this is where we introduce systems. Okay, and obviously we're a technology business. I'm going to be talking to you a lot about systems on this stream because we've got some really cool systems we actually operate. So systems is the thing that enables you to not just save your time, but also to save your money. Okay, and let me give you a quick example. You remember the day back when you were younger, and some of you when you were much younger, when you used to have to go to the bank with your book, okay, and your book would be the only thing you would be able to put your money in with or get your money out with, and everything would have to be signed. Okay, and that was a very manual process, and it's a paper-led process. The whole thing was paper-led. This was back in the day when I was much younger, and no doubt so were you. Now, it's interesting because now if you consider the amount of effort that went into being able to utilize and spend your money at that time, how long does it currently take you to be able to transfer some money, or to be able to spend some money, or send some money to somebody, or even be able to receive some money? And the answer is quick, okay, almost instantaneously. And that is technology that has enabled us to do that. So technology has shortcuts the necessity for you to go to the bank with your paying in book to be able to go deal with everything there, to then have to return home and await for everything to be done. Okay, and in the same way, property, if you consider property investing as it stands now, have you noticed how much actual physical paperwork is still required within the property industry? Okay, all conveyancers, they all still deal in paper. Okay, mortgage brokers, although a lot of them are becoming more technological, they still deal in paper. Mortgage lenders still deal in paper. Okay, there is so much stuff that is paper led and old school led. Okay, you have to physically go and sign this in front of this person, and you have like everything is very, very manual and very expensive in terms of time wastage. So part of what we're looking to do is to essentially systemize and bring the whole property world into the 21st century so that you don't have to expend that kind of time to be able to build your portfolio. It's pretty cool stuff. I'll go through that with you in just a minute. Okay, so those are three of our biggest takeaways from the whole Corona thing is, that in terms of your best returns, it's always going to be investments over expecting a job to give you job security. Second thing is move things online. You get a much bigger marketplace, a much bigger target audience for you to be able to approach for anything. And, I know I'm probably teaching some of you guys to suck eggs, but if you haven't already done it, do it. Okay, this is meetings like out of interest, who travels into London or travels wherever for meetings all the time? Okay, and if that's you, if you're going, well, actually, I'm the one who always travels for meetings. Why? You can do everything on Zoom. I literally had a meeting with somebody from Singapore this morning, had a meeting with somebody who's based over in Wales this morning, and then this afternoon I had a meeting with somebody who's based over in Geneva. Okay, and it's literally sat in the comfort of my own office, not having to travel, not having to expend the travel time to be able to go and have those meetings, whilst ensuring that we can continue to allow business to progress. Okay, very important. And then the third one is when it comes to doing anything, start to find a way in which you can systemize things in your life as opposed to relying on doing things yourself or paying other people to do it. Aim to try and systemize where possible. It doesn't only save you your time, but it also saves you your money. It is amazing the value of good systems. Okay, now, some of you guys will have noticed the property market is back open. Yay! Okay, really big win. Property market is back open. Things are starting to move forward again. Now, it's really interesting because obviously you've heard a lot of scaremongering. Awesome. I absolutely love that, Kathy. So you get a lot of scaremongering with regards to everything in the market. I don't know if, you've got all these fund managers doing it to be able to create a slump in the market to pick up a lot of deals or whatever. There's people who are doing some very cheeky things with regards to talking about how negatively it affected the marketplace is, etc. Have a chat with some estate agents. Ask them how their viewings are going. Okay, and I'm telling you now, they will tell you, oh, we can't fit you in for the next 2 weeks. Okay, why do you think that is? It's not because they're not viewing. It's because they are completely over requested for viewings. That means all of these people want to buy properties. If you understand, the whole housing market is depicted or depends on supply and demand. Okay, now the suppliers continue to maintain the same. However, the demand is massive at the minute because everybody wants to hit the marketplace back at a run. That tells me the market is only going one way. Let me just be clear, and that is up. Okay, that is obviously, I don't have a crystal ball. Let me be clear, but how could it not, right? The demand is certainly there, which means the housing market has to move in one direction. There's a whole bunch of other stuff we also cover on a previous session. Please feel free to watch. I think it's episode number 1. We cover the whole Corona thing back when that originally kicked in like 7-8 weeks ago. Okay, so some of the ways in which you can now view properties and you can continue to build your portfolio from the comfort of your own home, okay, as an example, is they're now doing things like virtual tours. Okay, so, and they've been doing them for a while, but now they're really coming into this whole trend. It became a big thing where estate agents would have a virtual tour of a house. Okay, and that would either be a photographer would walk you through or they FaceTime you through. I mean, there's a whole different array of ways in which they do virtual tours, but they do virtual tours. Now, that's a pretty interesting advancement. Okay, because that means you can actually view a house without physically having to be there. Now, you're not going to get the same feel for it and you're going to miss like the smells and all that kind of stuff, but it gives you a pretty good idea. And the interesting thing is they've also started doing valuations also virtually. Now, obviously, that is now being scrapped again and it's now moving back into normality now that the marketplace is open, but it just gives you a little bit of a taste as to how the entire marketplace is moving. Now, the real interesting thing is the fact that some mortgage lenders said we are okay with virtual valuations should tell you something. Okay, and what it tells me, if this doesn't ring a bell for you, what it tells me is that they are starting to open their doors to possibility of changing the archaic way in which they're working. Okay, so they're starting to move more towards the 21st century because necessity dictates that they need to. Now, if they're willing to accept it at this point, that means they will be willing to accept it in the future, especially when things continue to get better in terms of technology. Okay, which is very interesting. Okay, so that was number two. So that is the virtual valuation. So that's the second interesting way in which people are viewing properties at the minute. Now, the third thing, which is something that we do a lot, and we actually offer a service for all of our mentorship students, is something called hired viewers. Okay, these are trained people who understand how to view properties. They have a good understanding of property investing, how the whole thing works. Okay, these are all existing mentorship students that are on the verge of financial freedom, and they're at the point where they're going, look, if I just supplement my income a little bit through viewing some houses for some other mentees in the area, then that's it. I've tipped over the line where I am now financially free, and I buy back the rest of my time. Okay, now these viewers have all personally been trained by Taro. Taro's an architect of many years. He's basically headed up a lot of our refurbishments. He's probably headed up 50 to 100 projects within the last 7-8 years. We've executed personally, I think we had over 36 deals going at the same time. Definitely executed on over 100 projects, whether that's sourcing or buying, certainly within the last few years. So he has some pretty good grounding, and he teaches them how to view properties. Okay, so a viewer is a very interesting way to do it. Now, in terms of how a viewer does it, or the reason we have the viewers doing it, because we have mentorship students who are based all around the world. Now, if you're busy tuning into this, or you're watching the recording of this, and you're going, well, actually, I'm based in Switzerland, or I'm based in China, or I'm based in Singapore, wherever you're based, and you're busy tuning into this, understand that that is what enables you to build a UK-based property portfolio, without having to come here. Okay, now you might have to come here depending on some lenders for a drop in, but you won't be viewing bundles and bundles of houses to be able to get your deals through the line, which is a huge, huge, huge win, by the way. Okay. Anybody who's based down in London, or somewhere in the south of the UK, or the southwest, southeast, wherever you're based, and you're looking to invest in the north, this also enables you to be able to free up your time, because if you consider how long it takes you to travel, okay, if you're driving, I don't know, 5-6 hours to the north of England. Okay, so I'm based in Sevenoaks, so this is down in Kent that we're busy running this. This is the studios down in Kent. Now, I have properties up in Manchester, in Blackpool, all around those sort of areas. Now, any issues that happen up there, I'm not going to be schlepping up there. Okay, I'm not going to be doing viewings up there. We've got people on the ground who actually do all of the legwork for us, in the same way that you have the ability to do the same. Now, it's important that the people who are viewing the houses for you need to be trained, and they need to have a really good system to be able to do this. Okay, they need to have a really good system to be able to view houses, to know that what they view is accurate. So something I want you guys to do, just write this down, make a note, and probably do it yourself. You actually get an application on your phone, so on the App Store and the Play Store, okay, and it is called Refurbishment Calculator. So if I load up the App Store, okay, it's straight here on the App Store as it loads in. Yeah, there you go, it's loading in. And you just search Refurbishment Calculator. Now, it's interesting because this is a bit of software that we've created for another backend software that we operate, but this is the base version. So this is the basic version. And you can actually go and cost up refurbishments, as you see here. Okay, this is it. I know it's not very clear because of the camera zoom. Okay, but if you go online, you can find it on the App Store, the Play Store, absolutely free. Please feel free to go and play. Costs you nothing to use. Let me be clear, there's no cost, there's no nothing in there. And you can just go on there, you can have a bit of a play, you can go and view houses. There's some estimated costs. You can go and adapt the cost based on your builders within the area, etc. And enables you to actually go and cost up a refurbishment very simply, very easily. And it's very similar to the version we currently use. It's not exactly the same because this is the light version. Okay, but this is how we've got our viewers who go around, they literally tick boxes and put in measurements. That is all they do around a house. That is it. That is all they have to do. Okay. And you'll see when you go on the technology, this is still our very base version. It's nowhere near where it's going to end up, but it's very cool. And you'll very quickly notice that you can build, or you can cost a refurbishment, even as a bit of an amateur. You can cost a refurbishment pretty accurately, or surprisingly accurately, just using this application. Okay, I urge you to have a bit of a look, have a bit of a play. It's absolutely free. Just have some fun. Now, all of our viewers actually use those. And I'd urge you, any of your viewers that are currently viewing for you, make sure that they have something like that, a way in which you know that they are accurately costing your refurbishments. And I know some of you are going, yeah, but I'll just get my builder to do it. Let me ask you, How many times do you think your builder will want to view houses without getting the work? Okay, and I'm telling you now, as soon as he gets to maybe the fourth, he'll be like, I'm not doing this anymore. Okay, he won't want to continue to view houses without getting the work. So you have to think of another plan, and that's where a viewer comes in, and that's why we do it the way in which we do it. Okay. Now, one more thing which I think is very cool in terms of new ways in which people are viewing properties and technological advancements. Something that we are currently working on is machine learning, so artificial intelligence. So this is where a computer learns and understands stuff itself, and it's working on things like imagery to be able to understand what sort of costs that a refurbishment needs. Now, we're very fortunate because we're connected up with some quantity surveying information, local price points within the area, materials lists within the area. There's a whole bunch of stuff we're connected with. Okay, and off the back of that, then we have the machine learning actually take a look around a property. Okay, it can actually do it through all the Rightmove images and Rightmove write-up, and as well as a couple of other data sources that are kept well under wraps, but completely legitimate, which is good. So utilizing that information, it can actually give you a pretty good eye line as to what the refurbishment is before you have to view it, and therefore let you know if it's even worth your time viewing. Okay, which is a very important point, because if you turn up at a house and you're expecting a 5K refurb and you know you're going to be offering pretty close because of that, and it turns out it's a 25K refurb because it needs a new heating system, full rewire, the roof needs doing, it needs a damp proof course, etc., immediately it blows the whole deal out of the water. So that's something that we're busy working on in the minute. So machine learning is something that is going to evolve the entire property industry in the future, and it's something we're already utilizing to evolve the industry. Okay, so that's some of the new ways in which viewing properties is happening, is being taken care of. And look, if you've got any questions on this, please feel free to ask, by the way. And I love questions. This is what we do. I literally stand in front of a camera most of the day. Yeah, totally agree with you, Clive. Super, super helpful. And I'm very, very excited because the steps that we are taking to be able to evolve the property world is fascinating. And for those of you that have already started your journey with us or have been watching us from afar, you will very quickly see that what we've been doing is pretty tremendous. It's pretty outstanding. Okay, now I'm going to go through a couple of the advancements that we've made within the property industry that I think would be useful for you guys to make note of. Okay, because this is some of the stuff that, although some of it might not be completely relevant for you now, you might just be starting out, or you might be, buying commercial units, and it might not be totally relevant for you where you are. But if you're looking to build a portfolio using basic buy-to-lets, basic HMOs, basic flipping projects, or deal sourcing, where you basically negotiate the sale with somebody else, and then find a buyer connected to and get paid for their essentially brokering a deal. Okay. If you're doing any of that sort of stuff, then listen very closely, because this stuff is very interesting. Okay, so when it comes to investing, there's a very set sequence as to how things operate, and what we do is we call this your basically your investing process. Okay, this is called your investment process, and it's very interesting. So you first of all, just going to call it process. Okay, so the very first thing you have to do before you actually kickstart or do any other kind of investing, the very first thing you have to do, okay, is you have to select your strategy. Okay, now this is some stuff that we actually teach in our 3-day training, but I thought it'd be useful to bring in for you guys here because I thought you might get some value out of it, which is pretty cool. Okay, so the very first thing you've got to do is you've got to select your investment strategy. And the way in which you do that is you figure out what your current circumstances are, or how much money you've got, how much money you need to earn on a month's basis to build a portfolio to where you need. Okay, who you have in your team, so where your builders and all that stuff is based, okay, etc. And you want to start looking at how you can select the strategy that you're going to be using. Now, to give you an example of some strategies, that can be buy-to-lets, that can be flips, where you buy, renovate, and sell for a profit. That can be HMOs, where you rent it out by the room. Okay, so think of student accommodation, so that's a HMO. It can be deal sourcing, where you negotiate the deals and you sell it to somebody else, and you make a brokerage fee in the middle. Okay, you've got to figure out whatever strategy you need to do to either build up your capital pot, because you started with very little, or to be able to get your cash flow to where you need it to be as quick as possible, so you can exit the work or have the option to exit the work. Okay, and this is your strategy. That is number one. Okay, number two, okay, is your area. Now, it's really interesting. Most people teach you that the first thing you got to do is find your gold mine area, blah, de, blah, de, blah. Bull, okay, is what I say. The first thing you have to do is select your strategy. Once you know your strategy, only then can you find your investment area, because certain strategies do not work in all areas. Okay, as a matter of fact, most strategies don't work well. I don't know any strategy that works in all areas. Okay, so you have to make sure you set your strategy first and then you select your investment area next. Okay, very, very important. Now, you move into number 3, okay, which is where you find properties. But it's not just any properties, you've got to find the right properties. Okay, so the props, I'm just going to call them props because I'm running out of paper, but this is the right properties, the properties that are most likely to be a deal, where you know, in terms of the numbers, okay, this meets your criteria for a deal. Okay, very interesting stuff. Okay, so it's finding the right properties. Now, we actually have a technology called the Deal Finder where we go through this, and I'll be talking to you a little bit about that in just a minute. Okay, so finding the right properties. Then number 4, okay, you got to book the viewings. So you find all the right properties, and you go, okay, great. These are the ones that are worth me spending my time looking at. Instead of looking at every property on the market, you only look at a very small select few that will meet your criteria. Okay, and investment criteria is based on returns, so money earned back for your investment pot. Okay, let me be clear. We actually went through that on the last session. Please watch the last call. It was very cool and actually very technical, and I'm sure you're going to get huge value. It was awesome. Okay, so then you got to book your viewings. Now, of course, it'd be rude to book viewings and not view the house. So you view the props, view the properties. Okay, this is where you're going to go view the house. Now, why do you think you view the house? What do you think the purpose is to view property? Okay. Hey, Matt, awesome to have you on. Awesome to have you on as well. Russ, thanks for joining, guys. Okay, why do you think you view properties? And the answer is, obviously, you need to confirm the refurbishment cost. How much is the refurbishment going to cost? That is the only purpose of viewing the house. How much is the refurbishment going to cost, and therefore, does it work for me? Okay, now you could say, well, I want to check the area out, etc., etc. That should all be taken care of at this point when you're selecting your area. Okay, now when you viewed the property, at this point, you're going to make your offers. Now, you make offers, or you should make offers on every single property that you have viewed. Okay, you should make offers on every single property that you have viewed. Very simply, because if you don't, then you have just wasted the amount of time that you spent actually physically viewing those properties. It is a complete waste of effort. As soon as you viewed it, you've done all the hard work. You've done the hard yards. All you have to do is make the offer. And then every month, and this is important, every month you re-offer on the property. So every month you say, hey, it's me again, just calling with regards to XYZ property. We came and viewed it a couple of months ago. I made an offer last month. Is it still available? Yes. Okay, great. Can I please resubmit my offer? Over a third of our deals came from resubmitting offers. Okay, now you need a good system and process to be able to monitor and track that, which is very cool. It's part of what we cover. Okay, the number 7. Okay, now this is analysis. Now this is interesting because I know that some of you at home watching this or watching the recording of this will go, but surely you'd analyze it before you make the offers or even before you select what properties to view. Yes, you do a base analysis, so what we call a quick analysis that gives you a very good idea, first level, and only once you get the offer accepted do you do a further in-depth due diligence. Very simply, because if you do an in-depth due diligence before you physically view the houses, you'll be doing that on every house before you view it. Imagine how long that will take you. Okay, and again, your most valuable asset is your time, not your money. So it's all about utilizing your time in the most efficient manner. So you do a basic analysis and you do an in-depth analysis when you have your offer accepted, just to double check your figures. So this is confirming your refurbishment quotes, okay, where you get your builders in. This is where you're confirming structural surveys. You're double checking estimated values of properties. You're double checking the rents of the properties. You're making sure that everything stacks as you believe it to be. Okay, and then number 8. Okay, last but not least, is you progress your deals. Okay, we call this deal progression. Okay, deal progression. Sorry about the writing. It's got very low. It's much harder to write. Okay, deal progression. This is where the step-by-step on what you need to do that you need to progress the deal. Now, please understand that we have over 140 steps for this section alone. Okay, if you miss any one of those, and I mean any one of those, it will either cost you time, money, or both. Okay, and that includes the deal. Okay, so make sure that you understand the whole steps of progression. So within this, okay, you have 4 items here, okay, which is 3 through to 6. Okay, we call this the loop because you continually do this. So continue to find properties, continue to book viewings, continue to view houses, continue to make offers. Even when you have an offer accepted and you're analyzing, you're progressing, you continue to do these. Once you set your strategy and area, you only need to revisit that every few months. Okay, whereas this, you just keep going and keep going and keep going. Okay, very cool. Right, so that is your investment process. Now, I want to talk to you a little bit about some of the systems and technology we have which make all of this easy. Because, of course, every one of these steps, if you just consider the amount of time that goes into all of this, there's a lot. Okay. If for those of you that are currently investing and have bought some investment properties, you will know, if you're not an existing mentee, and I know there's a few of you guys on the stream, so thank you for joining. Okay. But for those of you that are not a mentorship student, you will know that in terms of this, so selecting your strategy, okay, takes a few hours. Selecting your area can take quite a few hours. Okay, if you don't have a good guide on what you need to do, finding the right properties. This is the kiddie, right? This is the one that will take you hours upon hours upon hours upon hours. The problem with that is the more hours that pass, the more deals go slipping through your fingers where other people buy them. Okay, booking viewings for a viewing day probably take you about 3 or 4 hours, including all confirmations, all of that sort of good stuff. Viewing the houses, that's obviously an entire day gig. Okay, an entire day gig. You go view as many houses as you can in the day. Making offers, 20 minutes, half an hour. The important thing is tracking the offers you've made. Okay, tracking the offers you've made so that you know what to reoffer next time. You know what you can negotiate against. You know what the response is. Were they flexible on the answer, or was it a hard no? Like all of that stuff. Okay, analysis. Now this can take people forever. You get something called analysis paralysis. It's super common when it comes to investing and big money decisions. Very, very common, where people will spend their entire time analyzing the deal and never buy a frickin' thing because they work themselves into a stupor. And then by the time they go, okay, yeah, I'm going to buy it, somebody else has taken it. Okay, happens all the time. So you need a way in which you can work your way through analysis really quickly. We've got a process that'll take you a day. Okay, a day. You'll have solid analysis and due diligence on a property to know it's a good deal. And then deal progression, this takes as long as the purchase takes, basically. Okay, all the way. So our deal progression goes from offer accepted all the way through to sale or refinance, including all refurbishment, all buying, all, essentially the whole process. Okay, so in terms of the systems that we currently utilize to be able to speed up that entire process for you guys is the stuff that I think is interesting for you. So the first thing is with regards to selecting your investment strategy. So we have an entire goals section. So essentially it looks at your current financial position. It takes a look at what you need to be able to achieve in terms of returns. And then it makes an estimate based on the experience of us and our existing mentorship students as to what sort of returns you're getting on properties for your investment money. So you get X cash flow for Y money invested after you buy it and refinance it. And off the back of that, we then know how many deals you need to be financially free, i.e. cover all your basic expenses. We then also know how many deals you need to do, so like flips and sourcing deals you need to do to be able to pay down that money, how much money you actually need to do the deals, how much money you will have invested after you've done the deals. Okay, so we go through the whole shebang for you. Okay, and that all happens as part of the program, the mentorship program. Okay, but I thought it'd be useful for you guys to understand how the whole thing works and to understand the importance of actually having a system around this. Okay, once you have that, then you know what investment strategy you need to be starting on, whether you need to be starting on buy-to-lets, whether you need to be starting on HMOs, whether you need to be starting on flipping or on sourcing. Okay, I don't believe in serviced accommodation in terms of a larger scale. It is not scalable enough. Okay, it's a very difficult business to scale because of VAT and regulations. There's a whole bunch of other things in there. Likewise with rent-to-rent. I had a rent-to-rent portfolio. I do not believe in it. If you do not know what any of these are, just Google them. They sound amazing. They're not. If executed right, don't get me wrong, some people make a lot of money, and that's fine. It's just not the strategies I like to do because I don't find them as easily scalable. They are very person-dependent, okay? I like to have a system that enables you to be, if you were a complete idiot, and you could still build a portfolio without having to have any insight or knowledge. Okay, that's why we would do things in the way we do. Okay, now the second thing is your market report. Okay, so in terms of selecting your investment area. So what we actually do is we do an in-depth analysis of all the properties listed in the UK. Over the last 25 years, we actually have the information, including all the sales prices, including all the data around that, including EPC registers, crime rates, flood risks. So we have over 100 individual data points that we monitor, okay? And those data points feed into a document that essentially tells you what's the best areas to invest based on buy-to-lets, based on flips, based on returns, based on yields. all the way across the UK, primarily focusing around the north, because that's where you get the best returns, as many of you guys will be aware. Okay, so this is called the market report, and it basically tells you, look, these are the areas you want to look in. Okay, now in terms of selecting an investment area, a lot of people will tell you to look at crime rates. A lot of people will tell you to look at the right schools, the right hospitals, all of that stuff. When it comes to buy-to-lets and flips, it's bollocks. And for those of you that teach this, I'm really sorry if this goes against the grain for you. I don't believe in it. I believe 100% in the numbers. You look at the numbers. Okay, if you rock up in a street and all the houses are empty and boarded up, don't buy there. It's pretty simple. Okay, but if the numbers show that you get really good rental returns in that area, and the amount of time it takes to be able to rent or sell the property, okay, that tells you whether it's a good area to invest or not. The numbers, they don't lie. Okay, look at the statistics and the facts. So this is something that we take a look at. Okay, so that is the investment area. Okay, so that's one of the other advancements that we're making. Now, the next one is when it comes to you finding the right houses, the first and foremost thing you need to know before you know what a good offer is or know how to make an offer is you need to know how much a house is worth. Okay, that is the fundamental for anyone who is an experienced investor will know this. The most important figure you have to hand is what will the house be worth when you are done with it. Okay, that is the most important figure. The second most important figure is what's it going to cost you to get it there. Very simply. Okay, those two figures, okay, then followed off by the rent, so how much you'll get on rent, will then tell you everything you need to know. The whole thing can be pieced together with those three bits of information. The first one is, however, valuations. The second one is, of course, or the third one is rent. Okay, second one is, of course, refurbishment. So something that we've put together as part of our technologies is we're in the midst of putting together a property valuation tool that outstrips anything that's ever been seen on the marketplace. And I mean anything. It is using machine learning, and it literally has over 25 years worth of data and hundreds of data points. The valuations it has been spitting out is so close to accurate, it is scary. Okay, considering it is a machine that has done all the learning, and all we've done is said, okay, let's just set the base criteria on what we're expecting. Here, go look at the last 25 years worth of data, sold as well as listed, as well as extensions, like you name it, it pretty much has it. Off the back of that, it says, okay, based on the square footage for this area and the average sale price for the street for this type of property, adapting the square footage based on extensions, based on loft conversions, all of that stuff. It does all of that, and it tells you very accurately what the values are, which is super exciting. I absolutely love it. Okay, now that is what you're going to be using to be able to figure out what a good deal is. The next thing we've got is a deal finder. Okay, now a deal finder is something that is now a lot of you will create your own deal finders, and that is absolutely okay. The whole idea is that you can understand the technological advancements. It's the whole section. Okay, now a lot of you will create your own deal finder, and you will create a deal finder based on putting in your calculations of what's a good deal into a spreadsheet. Very simple. And then you might put in a selection of properties, and those selection of properties, it'll tell you which one's the best one to view based on whatever your criteria is. That is, in essence, a deal finder. Let me be clear. Okay, now all we've done is we've taken that. I started on Excel. I'm an engineer. That's my background. And I started on Excel doing exactly that. And we've now evolved it onto an online platform where it basically does all of the hard like number crunching for you, and within seconds tells you what to view. Very exciting. Very, very cool. But essentially, that is what a deal finder is. Okay, next is a viewing process. So, of course, we're moving down the list, and I'm just trying to show you where to save your time. So to be able to select your strategy takes you about 15 minutes. Okay, selecting your area might take you about an hour and a half. Finding the right properties, which is through the deal finder, will literally take you 5 minutes. Okay, now this is the one that would take you hours upon hours upon hours. It takes you about 5 minutes with the right systems if done correctly. Next, booking viewings. Now, as a typical investor, you will know the average investor in the UK views between 2 and 4 houses in a day. That's the average property investor. And if you go, well, I'm viewing more, then brilliant. You are above average. Congrats. I love it. Okay, but the average investor only views 2 to 4 houses a day. We view between 8 and 12. Okay, and we very simply do this. One, because we have a way in which we can get in and out of the house quickly and get an accurate refurbishment cost. Okay, and two, okay, which is very important, we've got an entire series of events, a process, okay, which is a selection of steps to enable you to be able to do something more effectively and efficiently. A process that enables you to view between 8 and 12 houses in a day and accurately come out with refurbishment costs. Okay, this includes things like, the driving lines, being able to set which properties to view first and what direction to be able to get the best driving journey, to get the best properties or the most properties in a day, stuff like that. Okay, so in terms of a viewing process, the things that you want to do is make sure you can sequence things correctly in terms of what you're going to view. Okay, and make sure you set aside the right amount of time for each viewing. It's very important. Okay, the next is the offer process. Okay, so of course now we're doing the viewing. The properties, obviously go download the refurbishment calculator. You can see it online. Like I say, it's absolutely free. So the viewer goes and does that for the viewings. Now making the offers. Okay, now this is for me, this is the moment that this is what separates the men from the boys. That's the term. I'm not sure I completely agree with the term, but that's the term. Okay, where a lot of people, they tend to freak out or run away or get scared. Now, when you make an offer and the offer gets accepted on a standard purchase in England, are you obligated to purchase the house? Okay, and the answer is no. Like, no, you're not. You're not obligated at all to purchase the house. So that then means, if you get the offer accepted, then awesome. If you don't, then awesome. Okay, it doesn't matter. The important thing is when you start to pay money to your solicitor and you start to put yourself out financially. It isn't until you get your offer accepted that you start your final due diligence. That is where you get your final checks done before you make sure that before you start to spend money. Now, in terms of how you make offers, there is an entire array of how to make offers. Very simply, the most important thing with an estate agent, okay, and this is an important note, is you want to sound confident. Okay, you want to sound confident. Hi there, it's Richard here from Katana. Me and my team recently viewed XYZ property. I'd like to put forward an offer. The offer will be in cash, and this is my 27th investment property. Be honest, don't lie at any point. Okay, but just say, you know, this is whatever it is that you think will add credibility to the conversation, or I'm going to be buying this with a business partner, or I'm going to be buying this on bridging. Or I'm looking to move quickly on this. What's the likelihood of getting it through at this? Like, whatever, there's a whole bunch of things you can say in terms of negotiation to get the estate agent on your side, to get them to say yes more often than not. Okay, this is an important thing. We actually teach this a little bit more in depth in the training as well. But the important thing is make sure you sound confident. Okay. Now, you go on to deal analysis. So deal analysis, as I was saying to you guys earlier, this is very simply a spreadsheet where you plug in the numbers and you put in all the information. And the important thing is it's all the information. The problem with the spreadsheet, though, is if you have any of the calculations wrong, all of the deals you stick through there will be wrong until you fix the spreadsheet. Okay, so you need to make sure it is correct before you rely on it. Let me just be clear on that point. And I talk from experience. I have done this. It was not funny. It's funny now. Was not funny then. Okay, now essentially the things you need to account for is you need to account for all of your buying costs, all of your refinance costs, okay, all of your refurb costs, okay, all of your lending costs. The lenders tend to bend you over and proverbially take the piss. Okay, so you've got to make sure you account for all of your costs in your calculations. Okay, now if you're paying sourcing fees because you're buying the deal through someone else or whatever, just make sure you account for all of your costs. And only at that point can you then make a judgment call on what the return would be. So all of your costs against, so we do a process called buy, refurbish, refinance. Okay, this is the process we do. Just review some of our previous videos. We go through that in depth, where you buy a property for a discount, you refurbish it to get the value up, then you refinance, and the bank gives you a percentage of your money back. So you have less money invested in the house. Okay, so that's how you can get more value out of your money. And as part of that process, you want to understand what your costs are going to be for doing that. Okay, how much money you're going to end up having invested, how much money you're going to be earning on a monthly basis, and therefore an annual basis. And only at that point can you then make a judgment call as to whether the deal is right for you. Okay, anything before that, you are allowing emotions to clog your brain. Okay, you do not invest based on emotions. Let me be 100% clear with you on that. You do not invest based on emotions. You invest based on your calculator. It is the only way to sensibly build a portfolio safely. If you go, oh, I just love this house, I want to buy it, you're going to lose money. I can categorically tell you, you're going to lose money. Now, I know some of you on the session will be listening to this going, yep, I've done that. And some of you might have come out lucky, and it happens. Okay, but the vast majority of the time, emotions cloud the brain, you lose money, and it's not cool. Okay, so that is analysis, which is basically accounting for all of your costs and making sure that the numbers stack. Now, the last but not least is deal progression. Okay, deal progression. Now, this is essentially your step by step of everything you need to do. So, this includes a starting point of what we call the pre purchase sequence. So, this is reaching out to the solicitor to start the conveyancing process, reaching out to the builder to get the building confirmations, reaching out to the insurance broker to get the insurance quote. Like, you've got so many items. We've actually got, like I say, over 140 on our list. I think it's 144, 146. Step by step, everything you need to do. Please understand, if you miss any of those, they will cost you. Now, if you are starting to invest and you're not attending one of our seminars, and that is fine, nobody's saying you need to, but if you're starting to invest, please make sure you make a note of everything you believe you need to do in as much of a sequential order as you can think of. Double check it with any friends who are investing, because that is the only way you can make sure you don't miss stuff. Because I can categorically guarantee you, you will still miss stuff. A friend of mine who is a lawyer missed changing a water bill, and the bills kept getting sent to the property where the builders were busy working. And of course, builders have a knack of throwing away the post as part of the rubbish. Okay, they're like, it's empty property post, who cares? And he never ended up getting a water bill. And then what ended up happening is they put a default on his name, and he didn't realize until he tried to refinance the property, at which point the bank lender says, we're not going to give you the money because you have a default. So it was at this point he was like, shit. And it was at that point that he basically went to the water company, rectified everything so he could get his refinance. Now, he's a lawyer. Like, understand, he is belts and braces. Lawyers are like this. Okay, any of you that have lawyers friends will admit this. Like, they are super belts and braces. And even he made the mistake because he didn't have a sequenced step of things that he needed to do. Okay, so that is deal progression. So it's an important one. Make sure you have everything listed out. Now, I'm going to chuck in a bonus one for you guys, which I think is very useful, which is portfolio management. Okay, and it's very important that you track all of your direct debits. You make sure that you have all the money set in the right accounts. You have money set aside for something that you call MO, which is monthly operating expenses. Make sure you have your money put aside. And this covers you in the event of any losses, any damage, any maintenance issues, any insurance bills, all of that stuff. That is your MO pot, monthly operating expenses. And you want to make sure that you're tracking for each individual property. And this is important. Every individual property, as an individual, you want to track all of the rents in and all of the money out. Okay, break it down into maintenance costs, lettings fees, legal fees. Break down every single one of your costs. And then at the end of the year, you want to do an annual review on your portfolio and see which properties are performing. Okay, make an estimate on change of valuation. So what's performing well in terms of value growth, what's performing well in terms of income. Like, if anything is underperforming, and it's been underperforming for a while, it enables you to see if the letting agents are stiffing you, which does happen a lot. It also enables you to be able to see if you've got like a problem property that is essentially the maintenance or refurbishment issues. Like, there's a lot of stuff that can highlight. So make sure you're busy doing that. That's very important. Okay, it's portfolio management is a big thing. Ironically, building the portfolio isn't the hardest bit. It is maintaining the portfolio and making sure that it's giving you the best income you can possibly get. It's one of my most fascinating learnings over the past few years, and I can speak 100% from experience on that. Certainly something to look at. Right. Okay. Now, at the end of these streams, I always like to give you guys some exercises. Okay. And I love it because it's an opportunity for you to be able to take some of what we talk about in the session, take it away, have a little bit of a go at home, take some learning, take some education, and then enable you to move your property portfolio forward. And hopefully you guys do the exercises every single week. If you don't, you're selling yourself short. It is definitely worth doing. Okay. Awesome to have you on, Hart, by the way. Thank you very much for joining. But yeah, so the exercise that I love you guys to do is just list out all of the tasks you currently do and can think of when it comes to investing in property. Obviously, we've given you the investing process, the investing sequence. You'll have your own version of this or your own way of structuring things. Make a list of all of those items, everything you do when it comes to investing, or if you're not yet investing, everything you think you should be doing when it comes to investing. Okay, that is the first thing. So that is exercise point number one. Okay, is make that list. It won't take you long. It should take you about 10 minutes. Okay, the second thing is I want you to write down an approximate amount of time you think you'll be spending on each of those to be able to find a deal. Okay, and this is very interesting. So, if you go, well, for me to be able to, I don't know, find the right properties, it normally takes me about 20 hours a week per deal. Booking viewings will take me, X amount of time per deal. And make an estimate on what you think it is per deal. And if you haven't started investing yet, trust me, it is probably worse than you think. My property mentor once said to me, he says, however long you think something's going to take in property, add another 50%, you'll be closer. And unfortunately, he has been proven to be very accurate on that estimate across the board. So, however long you think something will take, if you go, oh yeah, it'll be easy to find a deal, either one, it's actually not a deal, okay, or two, you're just delusional, okay. Finding deals is not the easiest thing unless you have the right systems and technology, as we discussed earlier. Okay, so that's number two. Put in your estimated amount of time that you think it'll take per deal. Okay, and then number three, and this is where it gets interesting, because this whole thing was all about our learnings through the whole Corona and the COVID-19 thing. The biggest of which is all about basically bringing everything online and automating as much as possible. Okay, so the third thing that I want you to do is I want you to consider which of these items would be the first that you would either outsource, or the first you would automate. Okay, so if there's like looking for technologies out there that could enable you to speed up or streamline the process. As an example, the refurbishment calculator I discussed earlier, okay, that is what you want to be looking at. So what I did and how I did this process, so how we actually started all of the systems, the technology that we currently run in the business, is I said, okay, which one takes the most time, but is actually the simplest to do? Okay, is not brain heavy in terms of knowledge. And I actually started with finding the right properties online. Okay, so trawling through Rightmove, pulling the information into a database, running calculations. It's all stuff that you can very easily teach. That's where I started. Okay, and then we went into booking viewings, viewing houses, and then making offers, which was a complete nightmare because it actually takes a decent amount of skill to understand how to make an offer. And if you've got someone else making your offers for you, they will never be as aggressive as you on the offers. Because when you want a deal, you'll make a deal happen. Okay, whereas with them, it'll be like a job. So they will never be as good at this. Never, I'll be honest with you. Deal analysis, so that comes later as well. And deal progression. Okay, so there's a whole sequence of steps, but that's how I did it. And I mean, that basically brings us to the end of the session. Now, I love to open this up for any Q&A. So if you have any questions or anything you'd like to know, anything you'd like to query on what we've covered today, please do feel free to drop it into the chat box. Now we're on, obviously we're on YouTube and Facebook. So either which of those, if either of you guys have got any questions, please feel free to drop them in there. If you've had a good time, if you've had some value, if you take some value from our videos and you like what you hear, I ask you if you can please make sure you share the videos, just share the streams and like it, hit the heart buttons, hit the like buttons, depending on where you're at. Help us to help the stream continue to grow. We're on a mission to help people build their property portfolios and get to a position of financial freedom. So anything like that, what has happened again recently happens, people are in a better position to financially support themselves as opposed to having to rely on handouts if they even come. Unfortunately, I've seen a lot of people I know personally going through some pretty heavy struggles with the whole Corona thing, and I don't want that to continue to happen to other people, which is part of why we're doing everything that we're doing here. So I ask you, if you've enjoyed it, if you've had some value, please do like, please do share, please do tell your friends about this. We run this every Tuesday at 8 p.m. I hope you guys have had a really good time, had a lot of value from everything we've been covering. It takes a couple of minutes for any comments or questions to come through. So if you've already typed and you hit return, please understand that I just have to wait for stuff to come through. It takes a little while for it to pop through on the chat. It does. Unfortunately, Facebook and YouTube are a little bit slow. And I keep scrolling the computer just to double check. Okay, so had a really interesting question here. Do you think the conveyancing process will speed up when purchasing a house? It takes so long for solicitors to do these things. 100% categorically, yes. And I absolutely love that question. Thank you very much for asking it. So we're in the midst of working on a technology they actually already have in Australia, and we're looking at bringing it here to the UK. It's a technology called a property passport. Okay, so the entire conveyancing process, just so you guys understand, okay, which I found absolutely fascinating, which is actually shocking. So you'd have essentially you, okay, and then you would speak to your conveyancer, okay, which is basically your solicitor, okay, and you would ask them to do the searches, and then they would reach out to one person over here, okay, one person over here, one person over here, one person over here, one person over here, all these different people that either go through a search company who would do this, so the conveyancer might ask a search company as an intermediary, or their company might do it directly. And then what these people do is they tap onto their database, they tap onto their database, they tap onto their database, and so on and so forth. The real question is, all of this information is currently on databases. Why do we not just capture that into one centralized place? Okay, because this is kept up to date at all times. So why don't we capture this all onto one place? And then for you get a direct feed into that for every property you're busy looking at on the market. You immediately have that image. So when it comes to you looking at buying a house, you already know whether there's any mining issues. You already know whether there's any flood risk issues. You already know whether there's any planning issues or any HS2 or God knows what else. Okay, you already have this information. We call this a property passport. So every single property in the UK will have a passport of history based on its local searches, based on its local information, and this will be kept up to date daily. This is something we're literally working on at the minute, and it's super exciting because what it means is instead of you waiting for like 6 to 12 weeks for searches, which does happen and it is very painful, okay, you will have that data immediately, which means the mortgage lenders will also have that data immediately, which means the amount of time it takes to buy a house or sell a house will drastically reduce. Okay, this is another bit of the technology we're literally working on as we speak. It's very, very exciting. Really, really good question, though, by the way. Thank you. Really appreciate that question. It's a good one. Yes, hopefully that answers it, by the way. But yes, so looks like we've got no other questions, which is cool. If you have any other questions, please do just ask. If you're catching this on a recording, feel free to just ask whatever question you have within the chat boxes, whether that's on YouTube, whether that's on Facebook Live. Someone is always monitoring these chats. If you've enjoyed everything we cover, if you enjoy the stuff that we're covering, like I say, please do share it. We really do appreciate it. It helps us continue to get the stream out there and be able to affect more people in a positive way, especially with everything going on. I can't think of anything better to do with my time than try and help people out. So thank you very much for your time, guys. It has literally been a huge pleasure to be able to spend the evening with you guys. I hope you guys have all had massive value from our time together, and I look forward to catching up with you guys hopefully next week on Tuesday, also at 8 p.m. Thank you very much, and bye-bye.